Decoding Dayton. Let's talk about downtown Dayton. What's going on with that? We all know about the resurgence of downtown Dayton. It's very exciting. There's tons of people moving into the city. It's awesome. But it didn't always used to be that way. There was quite a retail presence in downtown Dayton. Many of us know about Elder Beerman or Reich's. But what was it before? What were the other places there? I've got my good friend Brian here, Brian Sharp. And you're a man of many talents and backgrounds, right? You've covered a number of different things, and you know a lot about retail. Tell us a little about that.
So I've spent over 30 years in retail in Dayton, much of it in downtown. 19 years with Reich, Shillito Reich's, Lazarus, and so there is no better place to learn about all of the retail that was in downtown Dayton in its heyday than right here at Wright State University in the archives upstairs. So if we think of downtown, and you think of coming into downtown from the north, and you get to the immediate now would be the Victoria Theater. When it was the Victory, you could go in and see a show. There's a diner, there's storefronts. Behind this, back down First Street, was a place called War Tailors. Elias War would tailor suits for people. And inside the Victory, then upstairs was Barbizon Modeling Agency, a store called Ultimo. And then as you walked on past the Victoria Theater, there was now called the Metropolitan Arts Center. That's named that because of the old store, the Metropolitan. Now this picture that we found is actually the original Metropolitan, which was on Ludlow Street at 4th. So they relocated. So this was their original building.
This is the one on Ludlow.
Correct.
Okay.
But this is what it became when it moved next door to the Victory.
Okay.
Very modern, especially for that day. And then here's one of their departments, men's gloves. So the Met then sat right at that alley,
right,
almost at 2nd and Main, and right across the street, directly across the street from the Met was Walker's Clothing, a men's clothier, Bainham Shoes, and then there's that little small parking lot, and right next to that parking lot was Reich's. And there really was no department store around like Reich's. In that building were 9 places to eat, not just a snack bar, but 9 places to eat, a dining room that had models walking through, talking about clothes that you could buy. There was an antiquities area, there was an art gallery area, there was a photo studio, a travel agency, there was a clinic for the employees, there was a whole TV studio where they did their own TV programs.
Wow.
So this is Reich's in the early days. After that, they added on. So they kind of modernized the building, took away the trim, and added this tower, which became the buying offices, the executive offices for the whole store. Here's the billing department.
Look at that.
Here's the switchboard.
Look at that panel.
Memories of the first escalators in Dayton. When Queen Elizabeth went through her coronation, they brought replica coronation items into the store.
Look at that.
And you could come in and have your picture taken just like Queen Elizabeth. This is Main Street, the Main Street entrance, prior to the store opening for downtown Dayton Day. So there was
I love this shot.
like an English Bobby two-tiered bus double-decker bus you could take rides on downtown during downtown Dayton days. 2nd and Main is Reich's, 3rd and Main is Elder's. Later, Elder Beerman moved to Courthouse Square, so to the corner of 2nd and Ludlow, where they built the building that's now CareSource. Major department store, multiple floors, all of the departments, a smoke shop, watch and jewelry repair, things that you think of today, walking into a department store, and I'm not exactly sure, having been a store manager, how you managed all those things. When you think of multiple places to eat, all of these stores had dining rooms and tea rooms. And I don't know how a store manager got through doing what they needed to do. But so this is 3rd and Main, another image of this, an earlier image. Across the street was Mayer's Jewelers, which was at the corner of 3rd and Main on the west side of the street. And then Donnenfeld's was there, another local family, Ralph and Stanley Donnenfeld. Their elevator still had an elevator operator in it, seated in the elevator, even though I'm not really that old. And then next to there were other retailers there, and then there were what we called 5 and dime stores. McCrory's was right there. McCrory's had a walkway into the arcade.
So McCrory's is still there.
Correct.
Well, the frontage.
The frontage is still there, and that had a walkway into the arcade. Years later, when they remodeled the arcade and kind of brought it back into its heyday, you know, you think of the restaurants that were in there, Charlie's Crab, Charlie's Raw Bar. There's a little place called BP Gog's that absolutely had the best Monte Cristo sandwich I've ever had in my life inside the arcade. But that Main Street stretch wasn't the only retail. Cut down First Street between Main and Ludlow, there's kind of a Greek Revival building very close to like Christ Episcopal Church. That was Getting Jenny, a Cincinnati women's retailer. They later had men's as well, but that was the Getting Jenny store. The building's still sitting there today. Directly across from it, there was a little awning out right next to the First Street garage was Lenore's Apollyon. And Lenore's Apollyon was the kind of store, specialty ladies store, and if women shopped there on their lunch hour, they wanted to pride themselves on women not having to carry back their purchases, schlep back these bags. So they employed high school kids, really, from like Patterson Co-op downtown, Chaminade, that would come and package up. They would have packaged up their purchases in these beautiful purple boxes, and then those high school kids would deliver those packages to those ladies' offices. So imagine being there, you've gone out on your lunch hour, you've bought something at Lenore's Apollyon, and then later that afternoon, in walks this delivery person with this beautifully wrapped box, and every woman in the office says, "What did you get?" So, I mean, it was a brilliant marketing technique to
Sounds
think,
like it.
you know, gee, they've hyped the purchase. And you walk on down First Street to Ludlow is Talbot Tower at the corner. And inside Talbot Tower was a store called Billy Lewis. And Billy Lewis later moved to 2nd Street across from Kettering Tower, but in its heyday was the place that women went to buy a coat. If you needed a coat, you went to Billy Lewis. We're now back to 2nd and Ludlow. And on down Ludlow became stores like Bourne's, which was a ladies' store, Horns, the old Metropolitan. There was a location years later that was Wilkie's News, a huge bookstore. That was originally Dunhill's men's store on Ludlow Street. So again, we went down Main Street. Ludlow was just important. On the other side, Jefferson had an early sporting goods store. You know, you think of Dick's Sporting Goods now, or Tuffy Brooks downtown. Jim Flynn's was over on Jefferson Street between 3rd and 4th.
Over by where the Century Bar is.
Right next door.
Okay.
Right next door to the Century. So retail was everywhere. Theaters were, you know, movie theaters downtown. So you couldn't go anywhere downtown without seeing retail or a diner or photo studios, watch repairs, shoe repair, retail after retail after retail, packing our downtown streets.
All this has been amazing. I'm ready to go downtown and check it out. You show me firsthand. We do that?
Let's go.
All right, let's go see it all.